When hope dies on the battlefield, the crimson sky of Kepler 442b stretched endlessly above the battlefield, its twin suns casting harsh shadows across the scarred landscape. Scout Zara Nethys pressed herself against the rocky outcropping, her silver-blue skin shimmering with nervous sweat. The natural bioluminescent patterns along her arms pulsed in rhythm with her racing heart, a dead giveaway to any enemy forces nearby. She cursed silently in her native tongue, forcing the glowing patterns to dim. 3 years of war had taught her to suppress her people's natural light displays, but fear had a way of overriding training. The Terran Alliance forces had been quiet for too long. In her experience, silence on the battlefield meant one of two things. Either the humans had retreated, or they were planning something devastating. The communication device strapped to her wrist crackled with static. "Scout Team Alpha, report status." Commander Vox's voice carried the usual cold efficiency that marked all Valtharian military communications. Zara adjusted her position, scanning the horizon through her targeting scope. "Sector 7 Delta appears clear, Commander. No Terran movement detected in the last 6 hours." "Confirmed. Advance to Waypoint Gamma and establish Overwatch position. Coalition forces will advance through the valley in 30 minutes. The connection terminated with a sharp click. Zara sighed, knowing that her commander would show no concern for her safety. Valtharian military doctrine was built on cold pragmatism. Soldiers were resources to be utilized, not individuals to be protected. It was efficient, logical, and utterly without warmth. She began her descent down the rocky slope, each step calculated to avoid loose stones that might trigger an avalanche or alert enemy scouts. Her enhanced hearing picked up every sound within a kilometer radius. The distant hum of insects, the whisper of wind through the alien vegetation, and something else. Something that made her freeze mid-step. A low mechanical whirring sound, almost inaudible, but distinctly artificial. Zara dropped to the ground immediately, her heart hammering against her ribs. Plasma mines. The humans had seeded the area with their most insidious weapon. Pressure-sensitive explosives that could detect the unique bioelectric signature of Valtharian physiology. She had walked directly into a minefield. The whirring grew louder. Somewhere beneath her feet, sensors were analyzing her biosignature, determining whether she posed enough of a threat to warrant detonation. Valerians had 30 seconds on average once a mine began its activation sequence. She activated her emergency beacon, knowing it was likely too late for evacuation. "Command, this is Scout Nethys. I am trapped in a Terran minefield, coordinates attached. Request immediate extraction." Static filled her earpiece for long seconds before Commander Vox's voice returned, colder than before. "Negative, Scout Nethys. Coalition forces cannot risk exposure to minefield. Maintain position and attempt to clear the area yourself." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her own people were abandoning her to save themselves the inconvenience of a rescue mission. It was logical, she supposed. One scout was not worth risking a full squad. But logic did little to ease the crushing weight of betrayal settling in her chest. The whirring stopped. In the sudden silence, Zara heard something that chilled her to the bone. A series of soft clicks, like a countdown timer reaching 0. The explosion threw her 20 meters through the air, her body tumbling like a broken doll before crashing into a cluster of crystalline rocks. Pain erupted through her nervous system, so intense that her vision went white. When the world finally came back into focus, she found herself staring at something that didn't make sense. Where her left leg should have been, there was nothing but torn fabric and a spreading pool of blue blood. Shock protected her from the full impact of the realization for several precious minutes. She lay there, watching her life essence seep into the alien soil, trying to process what had happened. The mine had been perfectly positioned to maximize damage while keeping her alive long enough to suffer. Human psychological warfare at its most cruel. With trembling hands, she activated her medical kit's emergency cauterizer. The device analyzed the wound and immediately began sealing the major blood vessels with targeted plasma bursts. The pain was beyond description, but it would keep her alive for a few more hours. "Command," she whispered into her communicator, her voice barely audible. This is Scout Nethys. I am critically wounded and require immediate medical evacuation. The response came after a long delay. Scout Nethys, you are listed as missing in action. Your position has been overrun by Terran forces. No extraction is possible. Missing in action. The words were a euphemism that every Valtharian soldier understood. It meant she had been written off, declared dead for bureaucratic purposes. Her family would receive notification of her heroic sacrifice. Her name would be added to the memorial walls, and she would die alone on this hostile world, forgotten by the very people Semra he had served. As consciousness began to fade, Zara heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, deliberate steps that belonged to someone trying not to startle a wounded animal. She forced her eyes open and found herself looking up at the most alien face she had ever seen. The human was tall by Valtharian standards, with dark skin and kind eyes that seemed far too gentle for a soldier. He wore the distinctive red cross of the Terran Medical Corps, along with insignia indicating officer rank. A medic. Her enemy was a healer. "Easy there," he said in accented but understandable Valtharian. "I'm not going to hurt you." Zara tried to speak, but only managed a weak rasp. The human knelt beside her, his scanner already analyzing her injuries. She watched his face change as the readings came through, saw the moment he understood how badly she was hurt. "My name is Dr. Marcus Chen," he said, opening his medical kit. "I'm going to try to help you, but I need you to stay conscious. Can you tell me your name?" "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Marcus paused in his preparations, meeting her eyes directly. "Because you're a person, and people have names. Because you're hurt, and I took an oath to heal. Because in all this madness, maybe we can still choose to be better than our orders tell us to be." She studied his face, searching for deception or hidden motives. Valtharian military training had taught her that humans were savage, unpredictable creatures driven by emotion rather than logic. Yet this human knelt in an active war zone, risking his own life to treat an enemy soldier. It made no strategic sense. "Zara," she whispered finally. "My name is Zara Nethys." "Nice to meet you, Zara. Now let's get you out of here." Marcus worked with swift efficiency, applying advanced trauma dressings and administering pain medication that actually seemed designed for Valtharian physio. "Logi, how is that possible? Had humans been studying captured soldiers, learning how to treat their enemies as well as harm them?" "How do you know our biology?" she asked through a haze of pharmaceutical relief. "Medical exchange program before the war," Marcus replied, lifting her carefully onto a portable stretcher. "I spent 2 years on a Valtharian hospital ship learning xenobiology. Funny how useful that training became once the shooting started." As he carried her away from the minefield, Zara found herself confronting an impossible reality. This human had known her people in peace. He had chosen to study their bodies not to exploit weaknesses, but to heal wounds. And now, despite every regulation and military protocol, he was risking his career and possibly his life to save her. "Your commanders will not approve," she said as they moved through a maze of bombed-out buildings. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "Probably not. But they're not here, and I am. Sometimes that's the only choice we get, to do what's right when no one's watching." They reached what appeared to be an abandoned research facility, its walls scarred by weapons fire but still structurally sound. Marcus carried her inside, setting up a field hospital in what had once been a laboratory. Emergency power flickered to life as he activated portable generators. "This was a joint research station," he explained, connecting her to monitoring equipment. "Before the war, our peoples worked together here, studying the planet's unique ecosystem, sharing knowledge, building friendships." Zara looked around at the abandoned equipment, seeing Valtharian and human technology integrated seamlessly. "What happened to them? The researchers?" "Evacuated when hostilities began. Both sides recalled their people, classified the research, turned scientific cooperation into military intelligence." Marcus's voice carried deep sadness. 3 years of war, and I still don't really understand what we're fighting about." As the pain medication, too, Okay, fuller effect, Zara found herself speaking more freely than she had in years. Resource allocation, territorial disputes, the usual reasons for war. But underneath all that, Marcus asked, checking her vital signs, what are we really fighting for? The question caught her off guard. In 3 years of military service, no one had ever asked her to consider the deeper purpose of their conflict. Orders came down from command and soldiers followed them. The why was considered irrelevant. I do not know, she admitted. I am a scout. I observe and report. I do not question policy. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Maybe that's part of the problem. We've all become so good at following orders that we've forgotten to ask if those orders make sense. As night fell over the alien landscape, Zara found herself in the strangest situation of her life. She was warm, fed, and receiving medical care that was keeping her alive. Her pain was manageable, and for the first time since her injury, she felt safe. All of this courtesy of the enemy she had been trained to kill without hesitation. Dr. Chen, she said, as he prepared to sleep in a chair beside her bed. Marcus, please. Marcus, when I heal, what happens then? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, Zara, but we'll figure it out together. In the darkness of the abandoned laboratory, surrounded by the ghosts of scientific cooperation and the reality of current conflict, Zara Neithus closed her eyes and dreamed of a world where enemies could become healers and hope could survive even in the depths of war, when enemies become family. Dawn broke over Kepler 442b with the harsh brilliance of twin suns, casting long shadows through the abandoned research facility. Zara woke to the sound of machinery humming softly nearby. Her first conscious thought was surprise. She was alive. Her second was confusion at the unfamiliar surroundings. Good morning, Marcus said from across the room, where he was working at a complex piece of equipment. How are you feeling? Zara took inventory of her body. The phantom pain where her leg used to be was still present, but dulled by whatever medication he had given her. More importantly, her mind felt clearer than it had since the explosion. Better, she admitted. What is that device? Marcus looked up from his work, excitement evident in his expression. Something that's going to change your life. It's a prototype prosthetic fabricator designed for battlefield amputation cases. The fascinating thing is, it was originally developed through joint human-Valtherian research. He gestured to the machine, which was clearly a hybrid of both species' technologies. Your people's biotechnology combined with our mechanical engineering. It was meant to help soldiers from both sides, but the war started before clinical trials could begin. Zara struggled to sit up, her curiosity overriding her discomfort. You mean to attach an artificial limb to me? Not just attach. Integrate. The prosthetic will connect directly to your nervous system, responding to your thoughts like a natural limb. But there's more. Marcus's voice carried the enthusiasm of a researcher making a breakthrough. Your species has limited regenerative capabilities. The prosthetic includes bioscaffolding that should encourage your own tissue to grow into it, creating a true hybrid of organic and artificial components. The implications were staggering. Valtherian medical technology. Jai had advanced prosthetics, but nothing approaching true integration with the body's natural systems, and certainly nothing that could encourage regenerative healing. Why would you do this for me? Zara asked. I am your enemy. My people would not show such consideration for a human prisoner. Marcus set down his tools and moved to sit beside her bed. 6 months ago, I would have said the same thing about humans, but I've seen too much of this war, treated too many wounded soldiers from both sides. Pain looks the same on every face, Zara. Loss sounds the same in every language. He pulled up a chair, settling in as if preparing for a long conversation. Tell me about your life before the war. What did you do? The question surprised her. Valtherian military culture discouraged personal discussion, viewing it as inefficient and potentially compromising to unit cohesion. But something about Marcus's genuine interest made her want to answer. I was a geological surveyor, she said slowly. I explored new worlds, mapping mineral deposits and studying planetary formation. I loved discovering places where no one had ever walked before. That's beautiful work, Marcus said. What made you join the military? Zara's luminescent patterns dimmed involuntarily. The war came to my world. Coalition forces needed scouts who understood planetary geology. I was conscripted. Conscripted. Marcus repeated the word with clear distaste. You didn't choose to fight. Choice is a luxury, Zara replied, echoing military doctrine. Then she paused, considering his reaction. Did you choose to become a soldier? I chose to become a doctor first, Marcus said. Military service was a condition of my medical training funding, but when the war started, I volunteered for frontline duty. Why? Because that's where doctors were needed most. He gestured around the abandoned laboratory. I grew up reading about joint research stations like this one, places where different species worked together, shared knowledge, built something better than either could achieve alone. When those places became battlefields, I wanted to be there to help put them back together. As Marcus began preparing the prosthetic integration procedure, Zara found herself sharing more about her life than she had with anyone in years. She spoke of her homeworld's crystal formations, of the way morning light would refract through the mineral caves she had explored. Marcus, in turn, told her about Earth's oceans, about underwater research stations where he had studied marine biology before specializing in xenomedicine. Your peoples have so much in common, he said, as he calibrated the prosthetic's neural interfaces. Both of us are explorers, scientists, builders. Why are we killing each other? Fear, Zara answered without thinking, then was surprised by her own honesty. When first contact was made, both species saw threats instead of opportunities. Initial negotiations failed, territories were claimed, resources disputed. Fear led to mistrust. Mistrust led to aggression. And 3 years later, we've forgotten what we were originally afraid of, Marcus said sadly. We're just fighting because we've been fighting. The integration surgery took most of the day. Marcus worked with meticulous precision, connecting micro-neural pathways and biosynthetic interfaces while monitoring Zara's vital signs. The procedure was far more complex than any surgery she had experienced, requiring her conscious participation to test neural connections. Try to move the ankle, he instructed after completing the primary neural links. Zara concentrated, sending mental commands to limbs that should not exist. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, she felt the prosthetic respond. The artificial ankle joint flexed smoothly, responding to her thoughts as naturally as her original limb. Extraordinary, she whispered, staring at the hybrid of metal, synthetic tissue, and bioluminescent fibers that now formed her leg. The prosthetic even mimicked her natural coloring, its surface shifting to match her skin tones. The real test comes with walking, Marcus said, helping her to sit up. The integration will continue for days, maybe weeks. Your body will literally grow into the prosthetic, making it truly part of you. As Zara took her first, tentative steps, Marcus's communication device crackled to life. His expression changed as he listened to the encoded message. What is it? Zara asked, seeing his concern. Coalition and Terran forces are both converging on this area. There was a major battle yesterday, and both sides are searching for survivors and salvaging equipment. He looked at her seriously. They'll be here within hours. The reality of their situation crashed down on both of them. The safe haven that had allowed for healing and understanding was about to become a battleground again. You should go, Zara said, testing her balance on the new prosthetic. I can manage alone now. Your people will execute you for helping an enemy combatant. And yours will likely do the same to you for accepting help from humans, Marcus replied. Besides, I'm not leaving you to face this alone. As if summoned by their conversation, the distant sound of approaching vehicles began to echo across the landscape. Multiple engines, coming from different directions. Both armies, Marcus confirmed, checking his scanners. Coalition forces from the north, Terran from the south. They'll meet right here. Zara moved to the window, her new leg responding remarkably well. In the days stance, she could see dust clouds marking the approach of military convoys. Within the hour, this place would become a battlefield once again. "There's something you need to know," she said, turning to face Marcus. "The Coalition has standing orders regarding humans captured with advanced medical equipment. They believe your prosthetics program is part of a larger military enhancement project." Marcus's face paled. "And Terran Command thinks the Coalition's bioluminescent capabilities are being weaponized for optical warfare systems. Both sides see medical cooperation as a threat." They stood in silence for a moment, processing the implications. Then Marcus began gathering equipment with sudden determination. "What are you doing?" Zara asked. "What I should have done months ago," he replied. "I'm going to show both armies what we've accomplished here. Real cooperation, real healing." "They will not listen. Military commanders do not value sentiment over strategy." "Then we'll have to make them value results over rhetoric," Marcus said, activating the laboratory's broadcasting equipment. "Zara, help me document this. Every detail of your treatment, every aspect of the prosthetic integration. If we can show concrete evidence of what our species can achieve together." Understanding dawned on her. "You want to broadcast our story to both armies simultaneously." "More than that. I want to challenge them to remember what we're really capable of when we work together instead of against each other." As the approaching vehicles grew closer, Zara and Marcus worked frantically to compile their documentation. Medical scans, surgical recordings, testimonials from both perspectives. The evidence was undeniable. Cooperation had achieved what neither species could accomplish alone. The first vehicles arrived just as they finished their preparations. Coalition hover tanks from the north, Terran armored transports from the south. Both forces established defensive positions, weapons trained on the research facility that S.A. TDM'd between them. Marcus activated the facility's external broadcasting system, sending their compiled documentation to both military forces simultaneously. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen, Terran Medical Corps, broadcasting on emergency frequencies to all Coalition and Terran forces in Sector 7 Delta." His voice echoed across the battlefield. "I am accompanied by Scout Zara Nethys of the Coalition Geological Survey. Together, we have successfully demonstrated that our species can heal rather than harm, build rather than destroy." The response was immediate and predictable. Demands for surrender, threats of execution, orders to cease transmission. But Marcus continued, describing the prosthetic integration, the hybrid technology, the proof that their peoples were stronger together than apart. Then something unexpected happened. A single voice came across the Coalition frequency, speaking in Valtharian. "Dr. Chen, this is Coalition Medical Officer Varn. I have reviewed your surgical documentation. Request permission to examine the patient." Moments later, a Terran voice followed. "Coalition Medical, this is Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, Terran Xenobiology Division. Concur with examination request. This research could revolutionize battlefield medicine for both species." As medical officers from both armies entered the facility under an impromptu ceasefire, Zara realized that she and Marcus had accomplished something neither of them had intended. They had reminded both sides that they were healers before they were soldiers, scientists before they were enemies. The examination of her prosthetic became an impromptu medical conference, with doctors from both species marveling at the integration and discussing applications for their own wounded. For the first time in 3 years, representatives from both armies were talking instead of shooting. "This changes everything," Dr. Rodriguez said, studying the biosynthetic interfaces. "We could help thousands of wounded soldiers return to productive lives. The technology applications extend far beyond military medicine," Officer Varn added. "Civilian injuries, genetic conditions, age-related mobility issues." As the sun set over Kepler 442b, Zara found herself standing between two armies that were, for the moment, united in wonder at what cooperation could accomplish. Her new leg felt strong and natural, a living symbol of what their species could achieve when they chose healing over harm. "What happens now?" she asked Marcus as the medical teams continued their discussions. "Now we build something new," he replied. watching Valtharian and human medical officers working side by side. One patient at a time, one treatment at a time. We prove that our peoples belong together, not apart. Looking out at the two armies that had come to fight but stayed to learn, Zara Nethys began to believe that perhaps the war could end, not with victory or defeat, but with the simple recognition that some things were worth building together. In her heart, she knew that her true healing had begun not when Marcus fixed her leg, but when he showed her that enemies could become healers, and hope could survive even in the darkest places of war.